From the moment I set foot on the creaking deck, an overwhelming sense of dread settled in my gut. The Tempest's wake was unlike any vessel I'd ever seen. Her timbers were blackened and twisted as if they'd been scorched in hellfire, and strange symbols were carved into every surface. The rest of the crew avoided my gaze, their eyes haunted and hollow. Captain Blackthorn was a towering figure, his weather-beaten face etched with countless scars. When he spoke, his voice was like gravel scraping over bone. "Welcome aboard, boy. Hope you're ready for the voyage of a lifetime." His mirthless grin sent a chill down my spine. We set sail under ominous skies, dark clouds roiling on the horizon. I tried to busy myself with my duties, but I couldn't shake the feeling of malevolent eyes watching my every move. At night, I would hear whispers and muffled screams echoing through the ship's corridors. It was on the third night that I saw my first ghost. I was on night watch when a pale, shimmering figure materialized before me. It was a young woman in a tattered dress, her eyes sunken and lifeless. She reached out towards me with skeletal fingers before dissipating into mist. I stumbled back in shock, my heart pounding. When I reported the incident to the first mate, he just laughed bitterly. "Get used to it, lad. The spirits never rest on this cursed ship." As we sailed further into uncharted waters, the encounters grew more frequent and terrifying. Spectral hands would reach up from the depths, grasping at the hull. Ghostly faces peered out from portholes, their mouths stretched in silent screams. The very air seemed charged with otherworldly energy. One stormy night, as massive waves crashed over the deck, I overheard the captain talking to something in his quarters. A voice like the ocean depths replied, speaking in a language that made my skin crawl. When Blackthorn emerged, his eyes gleamed with an unholy light. "Change of course, men," he bellowed over the howling wind. "We sail for the Abyssal Trench." A ripple of fear passed through the crew. One sailor, driven mad by terror, tried to mutiny. The captain struck him down without mercy, his body disappearing into the churning sea. As the corpse sank beneath the waves, I swore I saw countless pale hands drag it into the abyss. Days blurred together as we pressed on through an endless storm. The sky turned an unnatural green, and eldritch lights danced on the horizon. Sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I was assaulted by visions of drowned faces and sunken cities. Finally, we reached our destination. The Abyssal Trench yawned before us, a gash in the ocean floor that seemed to lead straight to hell itself. As we approached the edge, the water began to churn and bubble ominously. Captain Blackthorn stood at the bow, arms outstretched. "Great Mother of the Depths," he intoned, "we have brought the sacrifices as promised. Grant us the power we seek." To my horror, I realized the crew wasn't here to sail. We were meant as an offering to whatever slumbered in that unholy chasm. The sea erupted in a maelstrom of tentacles and teeth. A titanic form rose from the depths, a nightmare amalgamation of whale, squid, and something far more ancient and terrible. Its eyes, like black holes, fixed upon our ship with alien hunger. As my crewmates were snatched up one by one, their screams cut short by the crushing pressure of the deep, I made a desperate leap for the only lifeboat. By some miracle, I managed to cut it free as a massive tentacle smashed the Tempest's wake to splinters. For days I drifted, sun-baked and delirious, haunted by the dying screams of my shipmates. When I was finally rescued by a passing merchant vessel, I babbled incoherently about the horrors I'd witnessed. They dismissed my ravings as those of a madman, but who would believe the ravings of a broken sailor? The shipping companies and naval authorities dismiss my tales as drunken fancy. I have to believe there's a purpose to my survival, that I was spared for a reason. So I keep watch on these shores, ever vigilant for signs of Blackthorn's return. As the years passed, my isolation grew. The locals in this small coastal town began to shun me, whispering about the mad sailor who who raved about sea monsters and ghostly ships. I retreated further into my small shack on the cliffs, spending endless hours staring out at the horizon, waiting for a glimpse of black sails. One stormy night, as lightning split the sky and waves crashed against the rocks below, I saw it. A flicker of ethereal green light, pulsing beneath the turbulent surface. My blood ran cold as I recognized that unholy glow, the same that had surrounded the tempest's wake on that fateful night. Without thinking, I found myself scrambling down the treacherous path to the beach, my heart pounding in my ears. The wind howled, whipping stinging rain and salt spray into my face, but I pressed on. As I reached the water's edge, the green light intensified, and I could make out shapes moving beneath the waves. Pale, elongated fingers broke the surface first, followed by the gaunt faces of my long-dead crewmates. Their eyes, once filled with terror, now gleamed with an otherworldly hunger. They reached for me, soundlessly mouthing my name. I stumbled backward, my feet slipping on the wet sand, as more and more spectral forms emerged from the frothing sea. Behind them loomed a larger shape, the ghostly outline of the tempest's wake herself, her timbers now translucent and shimmering with that sickly green light. At the bow stood Captain Blackthorn, his face now a mask of tentacles and scales. When he spoke, his voice resonated in my skull like the tolling of a submerged bell. "Welcome home, boy. The mother of the abyss has been waiting for you." I turned to flee, but found my path blocked by more of the drowned crew. They encircled me, their cold, clammy hands grasping at my clothes and skin. I could feel the life being leached from my body with each touch, my vision growing dim. Just as I was about to succumb to the darkness, a blinding flash of lightning illuminated the beach. In that brief moment of clarity, I saw the truth behind the illusion. These weren't my crewmates at all, but something far more ancient and terrible wearing their faces like masks. With a surge of desperate strength, I broke free from their grasp and ran. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out, collapsing on the sand far down the beach. When I finally dared to look back, the spectral ship and its ghastly crew had vanished, leaving only the raging storm in their wake. But I knew this was far from over. The barrier between worlds had been breached, and the horrors of the deep were stirring once more. In the days that followed, I threw myself into research, poring over ancient texts and forbidden tomes. I sought out other survivors of supernatural encounters at sea, piecing together fragments of lore and whispered legends. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The Tempest's wake was more than just a cursed ship. It was a vessel of transition, a ferry between our world and the realms that lurk beneath the waves. And Captain Blackthorn was its damned ferryman, forever sailing the boundary between life and death. I learned of an artifact, an ancient coral amulet said to hold power over the denizens of the deep. Legend spoke of it being hidden in a sea cave on a remote island, guarded by sirens and other fell creatures. With nothing left to lose, I set out on a quest to find this amulet. I spent my meager savings on passage aboard trading ships, working my way from port to port. Each step of the journey was fraught with danger, as if the very sea itself was trying to stop me. Storms would appear out of nowhere, threatening to capsize our vessels. Sea monsters lurked in the depths, their massive forms barely glimpsed in the murky waters below. More than once, I awoke to find my cabin filled with seawater and ghostly whispers. But I pressed on, driven by the need to end this curse once and for all. Finally, after months of searching, I found myself on the shores of the fabled island. The jagged cliffs and mist-shrouded forests seemed to repel any attempt at exploration, but I was undeterred. As I ventured deeper into the island's interior, I began to hear singing, a haunting, otherworldly melody that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The sirens were real, and they were trying to lure me to my doom. I pressed on, stuffing my ears with wax, as the legends advised. The singing grew more frenzied, more desperate, as I neared the sea cave. When I finally entered its yawning maw, the sound cut off abruptly, replaced by an oppressive silence. The cave walls glowed with bioluminescent algae, illuminating my path deeper into the earth. As I descended, I could feel the weight of the ocean pressing down above me, threatening to crush me at any moment. At last, I reached the heart of the cave, a vast underground chamber dominated by a pool of inky black water. And there, on a stone altar at the center of the pool, lay the coral amulet. As I approached, the surface of the pool began to churn and bubble. Spectral forms rose from the depths, the siren guardians in their true form. They were beautiful and terrible to behold, their features constantly shifting between alluring and monstrous. What followed was a battle of wills that seemed to last an eternity. The sirens assaulted my mind with visions of power and pleasure, trying to tempt me into surrendering the amulet and joining them in their watery realm. But I clung to my memories of the horrors I'd witnessed, using them as an anchor against the sirens' seductive power. In the end, my determination proved stronger than their ancient magic. With a keening wail that shook the very foundations of the cave, the sirens retreated back into their pool, leaving me alone with the amulet. As my fingers closed around the cool coral, I felt a surge of eldritch energy course through my body. Knowledge flooded my mind, the true nature of the cosmic forces at play, the delicate balance between our world and the realms beyond. Armed with this newfound power and understanding, I made my way back to the surface. Anchored just offshore was the spectral form of the Tempest's wake. Captain Blackthorn stood on the deck, his tentacled visage twisted in a mockery of a smile. "Did you really think it would be that easy, boy?" His voice boomed across the water. "The mother of the abyss doesn't relinquish her prizes so willingly." As if in response to his words, the sea began to churn and roil. From the depths rose a colossal form, the Abyssal Mother herself, her vast bulk blotting out the sky. This was to be the final confrontation, a battle for the very fate of both our world and the realms beyond. I raised the coral amulet, its power thrumming through me, ready to face whatever horrors awaited. For in that moment, I knew that win or lose, my long nightmare was finally coming to an end. As the Abyssal Mother's titanic form loomed over me, I felt a surge of power from the coral amulet. Its ancient magic coursed through my veins, granting me a strength and clarity I had never known before. With this newfound power came understanding. I saw the intricate web of cosmic forces that bound our world to the realms beyond, and I knew what had to be done. Captain Blackthorn's laughter echoed across the waves, a sound of madness and triumph. "You're out of your depth, boy. The Mother will feast on your soul, and you'll join us in eternal servitude." But I stood my ground, the amulet glowing brighter with each passing moment. I began to chant in a language I didn't recognize, words of power that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of reality. The air around me shimmered and crackled with eldritch energy. The Abyssal Mother let out a deafening roar that shook the island to its core. Massive tentacles, each larger than the mightiest redwood, lashed out towards me. But as they neared, they seemed to hit an invisible barrier, recoiling as if burned. I continued my incantation, my voice growing stronger as the amulet's power flowed through me. The sea began to churn violently, great whirlpools forming around the Tempest's wake. Ghostly crew members were torn from the deck, their spectral forms dissipating as they were pulled back into the abyss. Captain Blackthorn's confident sneer twisted into a mask of fury and fear. "No," he bellowed, "this cannot be. The pact is eternal." But I could see the truth now. The pact that bound Blackthorn and his crew to the Abyssal Mother was built on lies and half-truths. As my chant reached its crescendo, a blinding light erupted from the amulet. It lanced out, striking the Abyssal Mother and the Tempest's Wake simultaneously. The monstrous entity let out a shriek of pain and rage that threatened to split the sky itself. Before my eyes, the Tempest's Wake began to disintegrate, its spectral timbers collapsing into mist. Captain Blackthorn's form wavered and distorted, his flesh melting away to reveal the tortured soul beneath. In his final moments, I saw a flicker of relief in his eyes, gratitude for the release from his eternal torment. The Abyssal Mother thrashed in agony, her vast bulk beginning to sink back into the depths. But as she retreated, I sensed her malevolent consciousness reaching out one last time. With a final surge of desperate strength, she lashed out at me psychically. In that moment, I experienced an eternity of horror. I saw the birth and death of countless worlds, the rise and fall of civilizations beyond human comprehension. I felt the crushing weight of eons pressing down on my mind, threatening to obliterate my very sense of self. But through it all, I clung to the amulet and the last shreds of my humanity. As the visions faded and reality reasserted itself, I found myself standing alone on the beach, the waters calm and still before me. The Tempest's Wake, Captain Blackthorn, and the Abyssal Mother were gone. The cosmic balance had been restored, the boundary between worlds sealed once more. For I know that while this battle may be over, the war between our world and the cosmic horrors that lurk beyond is eternal. I am the watcher at the threshold, the guardian of the boundary between realms. For as long as I draw breath, I will stand vigilant against the encroaching darkness, ready to face whatever nightmares may rise from the depths.